जी जी, नहीं, I totally understand जी. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
तालपुर साहब, अस्सलाम वालेकुम. दिस इज अब्दुल्ला दायो फ्रॉम FES. कैसे हैं आप?
वालेकुम अस्सलाम अब्दुल्ला साहब, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह बिल्कुल. आप खैरियत से?
बिल्कुल खैरियत से, बिल्कुल मजे में.
Smear, I think we should start. लोग वेट कर रहे हैं उसके अंदर से. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon formally. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me start by thanking FES, particularly for supporting this discussion and initiative, and special thanks to Felix for joining us, heading FES Pakistan. And I always say that FES is one of those institutions, those organizations who bring discussions generally left unattended by many of the partners. So in this, and also thanks to you joining us hot summer afternoon and still coming to us. Thank you so very much. Before I invite Felix for his opening remarks, just a quick context. This initiative called Integrated Economic Governance Framework, a reform agenda for Pakistan. The broader objective is to start a discussion and highlight and identify a set of reforms. We see in Pakistan that every third year we achieve stabilization, and after every third year we lose that stabilization. So much is happening. We will be going into detail. The idea is how to sort of rethink our economic governance model. Where is the challenge? And particularly in a forward-looking, that what can be the agenda for a framework which can deliver sustainability over stabilization, which can deliver high quality growth, and which can deliver sort of employments, poverty reduction, reduction in inequality. So all social economic outcomes, favorable outcomes, what we really need to do. So that is the agenda that we are starting this discussion with support from FES. We have very detailed presentation, so I'm leaving much for the presentation so that you don't feel duplications. And let me also, our biggest thanks today to Joint Chief Economist, Planning Commission of Pakistan, Talpur Saab, who has a very, very busy schedule, but he managed to join us. Our big thank you. So let me invite now Felix for his opening remarks.
I think this works as well. Yes, thank you very much. Distinguished participants, dear colleagues and friends, good afternoon, and also a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of FES. But let me begin with something Willy Brandt said when he took office as a chancellor in 1969. He told the German parliament simply, "We want to dare more democracy." 4 words, but they carry the whole philosophy. That reform is not a technocratic exercise. It is an act of political courage. I think that spirit is exactly what we need to bring into this room today. On behalf of Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, Pakistan, it is a genuine pleasure to welcome you to this policy consultation on Pakistan's reform agenda for integrated economic governance. I want to thank our partners at the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, SDPI, for co-organizing this dialogue, for consistently bringing intellectual rigor and civic purpose to their work. We are grateful for this continuous collaboration over decades. Now, let's be honest about where we are. Pakistan has been through this before, more than once. We just heard that. Crisis, stabilization, packages, reform promises, partial progress, and then the cycle begins again. If you've worked in policy in this country for any length of time, that pattern is probably all too familiar, as again, we just heard already, but I think it's also quite frustrating for everyone involved. Not just for the economists and analysts, but for the millions of ordinary people who bear the cost every time the economy stumbles. The question we must ask ourselves today is not how to navigate the next crisis. It is how to stop building a system that keeps producing crisis in the first place. That takes more than good macroeconomics. Though, of course, that matters, it requires something harder. Coherent institutions, genuine coordination between fiscal, monetary, trade, industrial, and social policy and governance frameworks strong enough to hold the pieces together over time. In short, it requires the kind of integrated economic governance that this consultation today is designed to explore. At FES, our conviction, rooted in over a century of social democratic thought, including the legacy of Friedrich Ebert himself, is that economic policy only makes sense if it ultimately improves people's lives. Growth that concentrates at the top, that leaves young people without prospects, that excludes women in marginalized communities is not a success story. It is a slow failure dressed up in respectable numbers. Sustainable economic governance must be about efficiency, yes, but also about fairness and social cohesion and democratic accountability. This afternoon, we have a room full of people who rarely get enough time to think together. Colleagues from government, academia, the private sector, civil society, and development partners. That diversity is incidental. It is the point. The reform agenda Pakistan needs cannot be designed in one ministry or one think tank. It has to be argued over, tested, questioned, and built through exactly the kind of dialogue we are opening today. My hope is that we leave this consultation with more than interesting observations, that we identify real, practical pathways toward a governance framework that drives productivity, creates quality employment, supports investment, and builds genuine resilience. FES is committed to walking that road with you as a convener, a thought partner, and a friend to this conversation. So from my end, thank you for being here, and I hope that this will be a good and fruitful discussion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felix. Let me now invite myself for a technical presentation. Omer, if you can play. But in the meantime, I mean, we continue to listen on economic stabilization in Pakistan. But let me reiterate, this is not a bad thing. I mean, what we are speaking is not that we don't need stabilization. Stabilization is the first stage to move towards sustainability. The idea is how to translate that stabilization into sustainability. So this is where we will be presenting you. And we really believe, and evidence does show, that Pakistan's current economic governance model is designed, or it over the time got focused on stabilization. All the policy measures, the horizon is now quarterly targets, and particularly when you are under IMF program, of course, and I think it sounds that we have always been under IMF program. We'll show you some. So the idea is how to shift this, what changes are needed in this economic governance model or framework, which is now centrally designed for stabilization. So anything which is designed for stabilization cannot deliver sustainability. So there are some fundamental overhauling required. And this is where we are starting this debate. So whatever we will be presenting you is nothing final. It is just to bring you some evidence and some ideas to kickstart this discussion. So you can agree, you can disagree, you can bring on your own proposals. And this is first of the series. We have planned a series of these discussions. So if we can move to next slide. I have to open my laptop here, most probably to see the slides. खैर क्यों नहीं चल रहा है ये आगे? स्क्रीन पे हमें दिखा दीजिएगा जरा. So this is what we mean if you see on your slides by integrated. I mean, this is not a conclusive definition. The word integrated can be used in many, many ways. It's coordination, and we are not asking one policy only. Of course, as and I, Felix were speaking, many departments, ministries have to have their own policies. What we mean is integrating first on cohesion. All policies should lead to the common goals. We see in Pakistan many contradicting policies, the one achieving one goal, contradicting the other goals that has to be achieved. We will show you some examples. So that is first pillar that we are promoting, or the discussion that we are generating, that all policies, while achieving their individual objectives, should direct towards. For example, if can one example only, the revenue generation policy, the tax policy, the purpose is to maximize revenue targets. But when it gets through PDL, when it gets through indirect taxation, when it gets by not expanding the tax base and only putting the burden those who are already under the burden, it compromises business environment, investment environments. Similarly, we will show you some other examples. So that is the point number one, when we call integrated economic governance framework. We do not say that only one policy governing everything, but all policies should be designed in a way that they support each other's goal. So that is the one where fiscal, monetary, and all other policies can be. And then is the continuity. An integrated governance framework integrates your times as well. It avoids the reversals, and which is we are known mostly for Pakistan. Its policies are reversed, and we see in solar policy. We promoted solars, we incentivized investments in solar, but when there was now forced by the capacity payment, now we are taxing the solars. We are discouraging solars for other policies. So it shatters the confidence in policy. So when your policies are not predictable, so it really hurts your economic and business and all other. So the second pillar is the policy continuities. We should have a continued policy. And finally is the coordination, that all policies are well coordinated. The policies made in silos are the problem. So we need to have right now. We will go into more details. So this is just first consultation. So we are just knowing a sort of setting a broader context. We see there are so many frameworks of development working in every department has its own, and they are not coordinating. They are not speaking with each other. So not only the institution and departments should speak with each other, the policies should speak with each other. So these are some sort of three broader ideas that we are starting with, but we would come to you at the end that please do add anything that you wanted to add. What are we missing that you think should be there in this broader ideas? So if we can go next, please. So let's begin by appreciating what we have achieved. Again, stabilization. If you compare it with 2022, every program was on default. Every TV program was running. When are we defaulting? So in those days, Felix, whenever I receive any call from the media to appear, that was a single question: when are we defaulting? So that was the situation when we went through in 2022. Imports, I mean, our reserves was only for 3 weeks. Imports we were left. So we were struggling at all fronts. So then came the standby agreement of IMF, followed by extended fund facility, another program. That third review has gone. So we are much better compared to 2022, from 38% of inflation. So we are 11.7 now, latest. Interest rate almost half down from 22% to 11%. Surplus we are having under IMF program we have to show. But the point is, that goes to economic governance. The fundamentals are the foundations of this stabilizations are very weak. We just saw one crisis and it jolted everything. Of course, it hurt everybody, but we have highest inflation in South Asia. We have highest interest rate in South Asia. We have highest energy costs in South Asia. So this is where the economic governance framework need to think what can be done or what other countries have been doing that we are not doing, that every fourth year we are stuck in stabilization and we don't translate into sustainability. Next, please. So this is that Pakistan's problem is not shortage of policies. I mean, we are the global champion on solars. The kind of solar we had on clean green energies. But now we are reversing it. So if you see the average growth rate over the long term, if you cut on 4%, roughly 50% of the time, we are lower than the 4%. So if you see these years from 2000 onward, in 20 years, the Pakistan's GDP growth rate has been less than 4% in roughly 10 years. And that is with the population growth rate of 2.53%, with 2.5 million young people entering to labor market every day, every year. So this is where Pakistan also an economic governance framework. If you see Pakistan's growth has three key characteristics. One, it is a low level compared to regional. You see Bangladesh, you see India. So they are operating 8 to 10%, 7 to 10%. We are operating roughly on 4%. So that is one, the low levels of peak growth. So our peak is around 4 to 5%. But the Bangladesh and India peak 6, 7, 8, 9, sometime 10% as well. Number two, our growth is short-lived. It's for 1 year or 2 years, you have a 4%. The moment you touch to 5%, you go into a balance of payment crisis. So this is very short-lived. And lastly, I think that is the structure of growth that we will be speaking. And this is where again, economic governance model needs to realign itself. We will be giving you a comparison that where is growth coming from? So that matters. Rate matters, what is your growth rate? But at the same time, it matters where is that growth coming from? Is it coming from exports? Is it coming from investments or consumption? Because how much jobs it is creating, what kinds of job it is creating, it depends on the source of growth. So Pakistan's growth, you can call it a bad growth. It does not create employment. It does not reduce poverty, as we see in last year's economic survey and the closing financial year 26. Our growth increased from 3.18 to 3.7%. But poverty increased, unemployment increased, inequality increased. So this is the third component that we need to change the structure of growth. Next, please. And this is exactly, given these problems, in 80s, we were the highest growing economy in South Asia. So we had roughly 6.5% average decade growth rate in 80s. But now we have 2.5%, 2.7%. Average growth rate of 20s. Last 5 years, average growth rate. And correspondingly, if you see, the trajectory of growth improved in Bangladesh, India, and other countries. So we were on the decline. We started at the top, but we are now dropped to the bottom. Not only that, we are having so much crisis, volatile growth, but the trend is declining over the time. And this is continuously over the last 50 years, if you start from 80. So roughly 5 decades, you have been on the downward trajectory. Next, please. And this really then resulted into GDP per capita. So we started higher GDP per capita in South Asia in 80s, but now we are the lowest in GDP per capita. And two pillars, again, this is another pillar we will be bringing you on economic governance framework. When you think how to modernize, how to upgrade economic governance. I think Pakistan's low GDP per capita has two broad components. Details are much more, but two broader components. The low growth, as we spoke, low peak, low period of growth, and correspondingly the highest population growth rate in South Asia. So we have the highest population growth rate in South Asia, maybe in globally top 5-10 countries, 2.53% population growth rate. And that all resulted in a low GDP per capita. And when you combine it, that where is that growth coming from? So it then direct has implications for your human capital investments, household savings, your national savings, and then your investments. If we see the trajectory of Bangladesh and India, you see two transitions. In 80s, they started promoting female labor force participation. No nation can progress if half of their population is left unproductive, if they are not engaged. And that is the starting point where India started female labor force participation. Because engaging female labor participation mean more household incomes, more household savings, more economic inclusion, SMEs, small scale SMEs where the women have job, and recent example is Bangladesh. Both now have roughly a population growth rate of 1%. India is now in fertility rate below replacement level. That a couple is not producing a couple to replace them on average. It's roughly 1.8 now fertility rate. So I think in South Asia only, India is now below replacement level. Bangladesh has a population growth rate of 1%. So for any economic model, what we are suggesting or what we are starting a discussion that population is not a residual policy. It shapes your expenditure efficiency. It shapes your productivity growth. It shapes your human capital accumulations over the time. It shapes skills, investments in the skills at a household level, and then they translate to national level skills. So any economic governance model which does not attend population as a mainstream policy will end up where we are. So any integrated model or any upgraded model of economic governance in Pakistan need to integrate this population management or growth in as a main policy because it is shaping your social and economic outcomes, and we see it in Bangladesh and India. Next, please. So this is again, we are the economy. We have the lowest savings investments ratio as a GDP, 14% in South Asia. Almost half of many of the peer countries that we have, because we don't save. And we will show you that why don't we save. 90% of GDP is coming from consumption or related activities in Pakistan. And this is much lower in other countries. We will show you. And this is again what we told about female labor. Foreign direct investment, we saw it declined even in last year. $1.2 billion total FDI in a country of 250 million. So that is the situation. And we are on the downward trajectory if you see again. So no economy can deliver a sustained economic growth without attracting foreign direct investments. And we have seen this happening in India and recently in Bangladesh. Next, please. So these are some similar numbers. Exports last year are roughly 7% of GDP. For the last 10 months numbers which are out, roughly 6.8% of GDP. But on average, a longer average 10% of roughly GDP. And that share in India and Bangladesh is roughly between 25 to 30%. And it has implications, creating jobs, bringing you foreign reserves, reducing your debt pressures. So Pakistan is struggling on two major external fronts, which are really, really fundamental for any sustained economic growth: exports and FDI. And that is why we are relying on public debt, and to some extent remittances now have been very, very helpful. But these sustained sources which produce jobs, I mean, remittances do fill your current account gaps, but they don't create jobs. They don't reduce poverty. So this is where exports and FDI. So that is going forward. This should be the key focus of the economic governance, and for which we made fundamental changes. Next, please. I'm sorry, I'm taking too much time, but so this is when you compare. We will be sharing these slides with you. India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, if you club. In all good indicators, we started good, but now we're at the bottom. In all bad indicators, we started at the bottom, but we know out the top indicators. And the numbers for 2026 are even worrying. The share of consumption, instead of declining over the time, is increasing. It's 94% in last year. And we see India and Bangladesh much below us, roughly 10 to 20 percentage point difference. So if you can just summarize, on average, around 70% consumption share on average in Bangladesh and India, and 94 in Pakistan. And it has huge implications for job creations and for many other sectors. And even if we go more technical sometime, I don't want to go, this even shapes your policies, your exchange rate policy. So in any country where growth is supported by imports and by consumption, the policy choice is overvalued exchange rate, because you have to finance growth, you have to support growth, making the importers cheaper, and by stimulating the consumptions. And that is again directly linked to your savings as well. So an economy which is run by consumption, so when you have a high growth, so you actually finance it by consuming, not by investing. So you sort of start consuming less of those savings. Similarly, if you see the export, we are on the bottom, 10%. India is roughly 35%. So next, please. So these, I'm just giving you these kind of trends. This is what is the core, actually. Any economic governance model has to overcome these contradictions. And this is what we call integrated economic governance framework, that you can call integrated or anything that you like. We are not sticking to any terminology. Idea is that the contradiction of policies needs, and as I spoke on tax policy, on the solar policy, on exchange rate policy, we always say that we wanted to be an export-led growth, export-led economy. But the exchange rate has always been the overvalued as our policy. Now we are seeing, as we are an IMF program, and also I think there is now realization over the time as well. So we are now gradually moving towards a flexible and open exchange rate regime that let rupees adjust where it is due. But broadly, if you see, the focus is on overvalued exchange. And that is a direct in contradiction with export-led growth. So these are some contradictions. In an FC award, 82% weight to population. At one side, we say that Pakistan is really crumbling with the very high population growth rate of 2.53%. But still your NFC sort of allocates an 82% weight. So provinces do not have any incentive to invest in tax revenue collections or tax revenue infrastructures, because if they are getting 100 rupees, 82 will be on the who has a larger population, who is the bigger populations. So that is again a contradiction that we need to. Tariff, we are now doing good. We are now moving to low tariff policy. And this is, I think, a step in right direction of this government that needs to be appreciated and strengthened. Pakistan is moving towards this one. And you can see in many other areas, like in agriculture policies. Our entire agriculture policy is designed out of wheat procurement or the sugar subsidies. That is our entire agriculture policy. Fertilizer subsidies and other. In agriculture productivity, in sort of agriculture SMEs, we see much less of it. So this is where, again, that you have to have sectoral policies aligned towards. For example, if you wanted to be an export-led economy, there should be an export-led policy for agriculture sector. What needs to be done? Because this is one of the sector which remains least explored in terms of, we have one of the best fruits in the world. And just last example, whenever I go to, and all of you may be traveling abroad, in halal food, whenever you find it is India, Turkey, and all, you don't find any Pakistani restaurants out in the global place. So we have best meats, mangoes, and all. So this is where you need to integrate. This is what we call integrated, that you should integrate then from sectoral top level. Next, please. I'm just left 2 slides. This is just a summary of those, what we have discussed. We just identified roughly 5 pillars at this point of time under those 3 broader areas. But you can think, you can expand what is missing. As we said, this is just starting a discussion. So the first one is the policy coherence, and under which is the fiscal policy, monetary foreign reserves policies, trade and investment policies that you need to do. Employment and social policies need to be integrated there. Any stabilization that comes at the cost of employment and poverty is fundamentally unsustainable. Exports, FDI, as we spoke, inclusive growth, population needs to be a core pillar at economic policy model framework. Business investments. And there, I think dispute resolution, we are speaking much on Pakistan at this point of time, but at a broader levels, at the larger initiatives, like Reko and others, this needs to be the fundamental message of the policy, that Pakistan has one of the most sophisticated dispute resolution if you have any disputes, because this is one thing that is really terrifying investors, that when there is a dispute, what happens? How fast the decisions are made? What is the foundations on those decisions? We see many things happening that should not happen. So Pakistan need to have a very clear at an investors level policy. NFC, public finance management, that all needs to be integrated in one way. Right now, our public finance is all run by the trends. What was allocated last year? How much of it was utilized? Increase it by 10% of the utilization and make allocations. That's all. It needs to be progress-based, performance-based, integrated public finance governance now, which is globally. So these are some of ideas that we just wanted to explore with you and with other key stakeholders. We will also be approaching that these are 5 pillars that we discussed on this one. So we will be leaving you with 2 questions for today's discussion. You can bring any other thoughts. That what do you think are the most critical pillars of moving from an economic governance which is trained for delivering stabilization towards which is to deliver sustainability, from a model which is trained to deliver a low growth stabilization, low growth stability, to a high growth stability, high growth stabilization. So that is and one that delivers on employment, poverty reduction, and all others, that promotes exports, promote FDIs, changes the growth structure from consumption to investment, from import to export, and from public debt to FDI. So this is where we are starting this. I know this is very complex discussions, nothing conclusive, but we thought to listen you. So if you can, we can show this last slide. Last. So these 2 questions on right side, we will be listening your thoughts, and please do feel free to challenge us that this is how we, and then last we will be bringing to Talpur Saab for his conclusion thoughts. So back to you.
Okay. thank you, Dr. Sajid, for your comprehensive, insightful presentations on this integrated economic governance and Pakistan agenda. I think, no doubt, this standby and coupled with this EFF IMF program, we achieve some economic stability that primary reduction in primary surplus and fiscal gap, to some extent current account deficit, single digit inflation, and this 3.7 GDP growth. But I think, no doubt, this is V-shaped recovery. The government claimed that under the IMF umbrella, the standby and then EFF program, we achieved this stable economy is now stable. But I think stability is not important. This is prerequisite, but not the ultimate solution. Sustainability, inclusiveness is important. And I think with this stability, we just cope with cyclical issues. But Pakistan is not, the issues are not cyclical, it is structure in nature. And how this stability should be converted into growth momentum and then to growth sustainability and growth inclusiveness. This export-led growth, knowledge-based growth. I think the fundamental structure issues that we are facing is trend deficit, current account deficit that push Pakistan for external debt, and this fiscal gap, budget deficit push for domestic debt. With passage of time, these structure issues are accumulating, and that's why Pakistan, with passage of time, pushing to external and domestic debt, and economic growth is stagnant, population is increasing, then in near future, Pakistan should enter into debt trap. I think, look, you have already mentioned that Pakistan economic growth, the structure is resource-based, consumption-oriented growth, not knowledge-based growth. I think all developing and in these developed countries, they are exercising to switch towards growth-oriented, knowledge-oriented growth instead of resource. I think structure issues, we have to cope with the structure issues, and this is not with this economic stability, fiscal consolidation that IMF stress, and this fiscal management and fiscal discipline is not the only solutions. Deep reforms is needed to overcome the structure issues, this fiscal gap, as well as this huge current account deficit. I think attractions to the government have to exercise to attract foreign direct investment and to encourage domestic investment. And human capability is very, very important. Population management is very, very important. And human capability is very, very important. Governance is very, very important. I think to overcome the structure issues, we have to reduce, especially this current account deficit. We have to work on both export and import front. We have to encourage export, and for this export encouragement, again, holistic and structures, we have to reduce per capita, per unit cost. And we have to discourage import, again, holistic approach, not just the cyclical and this stability. This is all from my side. We have to replace this resource structure growth with the knowledge base and deep reforms as need of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll come to you for everyone for one reform that you propose at the round of and one. What exactly one reform that you would like to take, this government to take to move this model, please.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Both in the beginning, you were talking about the cohesion and continuity. I think that is the most important thing when we talk about reform. On our last Good Governance Foundation, we were discussing how to accommodate the business community. And we were investigating the volume 1 of Ishrat Hussain. That was really a comprehensive document about the reform. When we take on board the business community and the foreign investor, we came to know that their concerns are totally different as the policy legislation on the business. they have a very different kind of reservations. They are not being accommodated in the policy legislation. So we were of the view after the discussion that if they are the part of the policy discussion, they would have the more trust. They are more fascinating to bring the foreign investment, and they are really willing to invest in Europe. In a business in every sector, and ultimately it promotes your economy. It helps to contribute in your sustainability. Secondly, as we are talking about that, we need if we talk about the current working situation and the integrated situation, this AI innovation has totally changed the working efficiency of every institution. We have to need to develop a system, a gigantic system that contribute every sector, that should contributing to every sector in your policy legislation, that's contributing to your human development, in enhancing their efficiency, knowledge, skills, and the most important, as we talk about the HR roles, which is not very well defined by the Ichiratu volume and the document. That is very much important, that you place a right person at a right job. That will really help to understand and set your direction to achieve all your integrated goals, as you were really very efficiently talking about. Yeah, that is my thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hello everyone, my name is
Please continue thinking one reform that you would suggest.
Okay, so my name is Twaha Adil. I am an economist associated with Prime. In the start, you talked about stabilization, and we can see that we have seen improvement in our macroeconomic indicators. But the devil is in the details. I will start with the budget. Whatever revenues we collect after giving provinces their due share and after debt servicing, there is nothing left to run the federal government. So before the fiscal year starts, we don't have anything left to run the federal government. This is the problem. How we have achieved this stabilization, I think this is very important. In the last couple of years, we have increased our tax rates exponentially. And increasing the tax rate is actually penalizing economic activity. We increased sales tax from 17 to 18%. We imposed heavy taxes in utility bills. We imposed high tax burden on the salaried class. Government says that people don't pay taxes. I think everyone in Pakistan is paying tax in any form. We pay sales tax for everything we purchase. We are paying tax on utility bills, in everything we purchase. So I think the first thing on the side of fiscal policy and reforms is we need to determine what is the tax paying capacity of the individuals in Pakistan. If we look at the labor force survey and highest survey, if the majority of our population, around more than 50%, is earning an income below 60,000 or 70,000 per month, then what is the tax paying capacity of individuals in the country, and how much government is expecting individuals to pay the tax? I think this is the question that needs to be evaluated at the start. On the revenue side, agriculture sector contributes to around 23-24% to the GDP. And when we talk about expanding the tax base, we say that we need to bring agriculture sector. But when we talk about the agriculture sector, we only focus on the crop side, and their share is less than the livestock. I haven't heard from any government representative that what they are going to do to bring the people associated with the livestock sector into the tax base. So I don't see any effort in that area. On the expenditure side, I think our expenditure is just a leaking bucket. Every year we see new departments coming up. Size of government is continuously increasing. I don't see any policy or any vision of productive use of public resources. We can see the composition of grants and transfers and subsidies. It's the allocation in these two areas is just to cover the inefficiencies and inefficient policies of the government. Now the question is why stabilization is short-lived. So at the start of every IMF program, government shows some fiscal discipline, and when we reach at the third year, then the political aspirations takes precedence over the rationality. So the problem is in the at the end of third year and at the start of fourth year, government will give some fiscal stimulus to gain some popularity for the upcoming elections. And the problem is any stimulus that results in increase in the money supply or increase the incomes of the individuals, that translates into higher imports and that leads to current account deficit. So we reach where we start. Now the determinants of the growth. So government says that we need to come up with a framework to translate this stabilization into sustainable growth, and that growth framework should be growth of private sector and export-led growth. Now the problem with the private sector is when the making money is penalized in the form of high taxes, nobody is going to invest in that country. Investment is related to savings. Why we don't save in Pakistan? This is the question we need to ask. Where are the avenues where people can save? If we look at the capital gain tax on mutual funds or income from stock exchange, it's 25%. If the tax rates are so high, why people will save? This is the first question. Second, if we talk about investment, we are mostly focused on attracting foreign investment. What about mobilizing local investment? So local people know that in these circumstances, high tax rates, utility issues, energy crisis, local investor will not invest in the country. Now about foreign investment. So any investment decision depends upon two factors. First is security of investment and second is profitability. If we talk about security of investment, then there are 2-3 main issues. First is terrorism, second is political instability, and third is policy continuity. So all these factors contribute to security of investment. And the second factor is profitability. That comes from tax rates, cost of doing business, and third is energy cost, because energy is a significant component. So this is from the investment side. And on the export side issue, I think we need to move away from setting targets like we will increase our exports from 35 billion to 65 billion or so on. We need to find out whatever we are producing in this country, is there a global demand for that product? And if we want to increase our exports, do we have the capacity to produce more of that commodity? So I think all these questions needs to be answered to come up with a framework for sustainability and stabilization. Thank you.
Thank you. Abdullah, you want to come in?
Yeah.
Please.
Since,
Dr. Ali, after Abdullah, I'll be coming to you.
Yeah, well, since Talpur Saab is the joint chief economist from the planning ministry is here, so I think you have already, gave the solution, but like this is also the problem statement that there isn't any cohesion, neither the continuity nor the coordination. So look at the situation of Council of Common Interest, like how it works and what is its mandate. And then we have the ministries like inter-provincial coordination. So is there any coordination when we make the economic policies? You have, one of the things I want to highlight, like if you see the slides, you would see that, the FDI was on the peak during the Musharraf's time. Like during the military dictatorship, the FDI is higher. But when we have the democratic governance, then the GDP growth and then the FDI is going down because there are like, some fiscal issues that we maybe like, we talk about the democracy and democratic governance, but when it comes to the fiscal decentralization, then there is a big issue. So in this case, like, I just want to place a few recommendations. One thing is that, Pakistan needs to have a very clear national economic coordination framework, because we have the Ministry of Finance, we have the Ministry of Planning, Dr. Talpur is there, we have the SIFC now, we have like, FBR, we have Economic Affairs Division, but like there isn't any exact, like, maybe Dr. Talpur can correct me if there is any approved national economic coordination framework which is being chaired by the Prime Minister, having all the provinces in it. Secondly, there is a dire need to enhance the role of Council of Common Interest in the economic policy making, because that is the constitutional platform which can play an active role, in which all the chief ministers of the provinces are members. Thirdly, we also need to have, though we have SIFC, but still I believe there is a need to have the National Economic Policy Unit, which should be chaired by the Prime Minister, and then all the chief ministers shall be part of that National Economic Policy Unit, because usually we have the National Economic Council, NEC, which is having the meetings in Islamabad, but then like, provinces are like somehow excluded. Last but not the least, you have rightly mentioned about the female labor force participation. At the moment, we stand at 24%. So there is a need to create, to have the job creation, which shall, and the female labor force participation shall be at the center of the macroeconomic policy of this country. And then there is also need to formalize the informal workers and the informal economy, including the platform economy and the gig economy, which is now taking place in the country. Lastly, as I mentioned, there is need to decentralize the service delivery through local governments. The problem is that, we don't need to have the barrage of like many ministries, like 40 ministries in Islamabad, but and at the provincial levels, but then there should be like a strong monitoring mechanism at the local government system, but then there should be the fiscal decentralization through the local governments. These are some of my inputs. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me bring in Dr. Alia. Dr. Alia, if you can come in. I see your raised hand.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sajid, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this very important discourse on integrated economic governance. I want to emphasize the element of time. I think we have to be very cognizant that time is running out for Pakistan, and we need very, very focused and simplistic reform measures with related indicators to map the progress towards that reform. For example, if we have set our growth rate at 4.5%, then we need to examine on a quarterly basis how the movement towards achieving that target is going on, given the growth model that we are following. Because you see, we have to become more data oriented. Data is going to guide us in the coming years, and we don't, with such a large youth population, the most important reform agenda for me is how to generate productive jobs in the Pakistan economy for both male and female youth of Pakistan. Because unless we do that, we will not achieve the growth target, we will not achieve the export target, and we will be struggling with our per capita GDP figure. It is well established that female labor force participation leads to a drop in the fertility rate. All countries in South Asia have followed this line and they have achieved success. I mean, we have to understand that the sooner we realize that we cannot solve all the complex problems of governance that are being raised in this platform in a sufficient time, which will enable Pakistan to break out of the low growth trajectory that it's on. Secondly, I would like to focus on the need for some kind of an industrial policy roadmap. Even though it had become out of fashion to talk of an industrial policy, but I follow the international developments on policy forums, and industrial policy is finding its way back into the policy discourse. And remember that even agriculture is an industry division. All the social sector services are classified as a service industry under the service industry division. So when we say industry, we don't really always mean large scale or even, small scale, medium to small scale manufacturing. The whole of services sector is an industry also. So let us have some very, very focused blueprint, measures for how to rejuvenate our industry. And I will also bring in the role of the private sector. I think without the private sector, we are not going to make the kind of progress that we aim to make in reaching the growth and employment and job creation targets that Pakistan needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alia. Dr. Talpur Saab, I'll taking one comment from here, then I'm coming to you, so you can structure your thoughts in the meantime. So please.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Saida Komal Amjad, and everything I wanted to say has already been spoken by rest of my colleagues. So I'm just going to share my side of the story, the thing that I see as a person working in the legal aid society. So, we see these things happening on paper, the good, that the prosperity and, all the positivity we see on the paper. But what actually is happening, like the people are leaving the country. Why? People, my colleagues, like a lot of my class fellows have already left the country. Why? Because if they stay in Pakistan, there's no future for them. They cannot get good jobs. If they get good jobs, they cannot survive in this economy. They cannot have a good life in this economy, basically. I work in the legal aid society and I see a lot of cases coming to me, and they're all, the focal point in all of these cases is finances. And how this economy is tearing apart families because one or two people working, like parents working together or, like having jobs is not enough to survive. A person, if he does not have enough food to put on the table for their children to eat, he does not care about the country's reputation. He does not care about the government. He does not care about the, what do you call it? These forms and everything we see on the, on the paper. We see all this fancy stuff written and, celebrating and everything. The government, what it's doing, it's just, surviving. They just want to 5 years, and then by the end of the 5 years, like he mentioned, like by the end of the 5 years, they're, preparing for the next year. So there's no cohesion. So like the question you asked, I think the main important thing is policy coherence, right? So if a government is making a policy and it's working for the country, the next government should continue it. And all the countries we see around the world that are very prosperous are because the government are not working against each other. Like they're not fighting against the country. It's not us against the country. They're like, it's, okay, we are coming in, the power is just for 5 years, or, there is a specific time period for your, after you win the elections, for the next elections to come. But if a policy is working, you take it forward. So in Pakistan, we don't see that. And that is also discouraging investors. Obviously, why would somebody invest when they know that after 5 years, you don't know what's going to happen? So what I'm trying to say is that when policies are made, they should be, they should circle around the citizens of Pakistan, especially the people who are living on the poverty line or below the poverty line. Because right now what we're seeing is it's pushing more people over the poverty line, and people are just, the families are breaking and people are frustrated, and the frustration is being projected in multiple other ways, as we can see in the news recently. So that is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Talpur Saab, sir, thank you so much for listening us very patiently. So over to you for your thoughts, comments. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sajid Saab, Madam Alia Hashmi, and all other distinguished participants of the today's discussion. It is, in fact, a great opportunity for me to learn from this august institution always. So let me have some words of praise for your candid and comprehensive presentation, where you have diagnosed the economy, the governance system in a very broad spectrum. I would like to add, as you rightly placed a few slides in the beginning, that which need the cohesion, the continuity, and coordination. If I summarize, all these issues are due to political immaturity prevailing in our country. So I will mainly say that these things usually are main hurdles. Political instability has become a hurdle in the cohesion, in the continuity, and in coordination. Second point that I would like to share with you, that what the economy of Pakistan is right now facing. There are two main issues that of twin deficits with the economy of Pakistan. The mother of all ills in the economic system of Pakistan, and all other issues are relevant to all these twin deficits. We used to manage external debt, we used to manage internal debts, and we in that discourse we used to move far away from the right direction. And till today we are unable to manage these twin deficits, and the issue is getting worse and worse day by day. So I completely agree with your diagnosis, and I have added a few points, like the political issues of the economy with this system. Now I would like to also share with you that the government of Pakistan, the Planning Commission and other economic ministries, has rightly diagnosed the economic issues of the country as well. So the integrated economic governance is being deliberated, is being discussed in the corridors of the government, and accordingly around more than 142 actions across 58 institutions, mainly economic institutions, have been diagnosed. And accordingly, the committees have been formed, and which are being working on these issues, and most of the issues have been resolved. For example, the key issue was with the FBR's tax administration and policy. Now the policy has been assigned to the Ministry of Finance, and the administration is the rest of the things and the targets. That was the main issue, that the FBR used to tax all the products, all the issues which the government policy was restricting it from. But since they have to complete their target, so they used to impose the tax on these products. As you mentioned about the solar policy, rightly. So these are the main issue. The government is aware, rightly, with the 142 actions around for 58 institutions. I even can highlight all these reforms, but since the time is short, so in the broad spectrum, as you mentioned that what are the two pillars that need to be strengthened? As I told you that since we are grumbling with the two main issues of deficits at the external side and at the internal side. So what we have to do, we have to invest in the human capital and exports, and we have to enhance exports by deregulating and tariff rationalization of our exportable surpluses. So these, I will suggest, are the two pillars where we should emphasize and we should invest, we should deliberate on these 2 points so that we may be able to handle the two main issues of twin deficits. So with this, thank you very much, Dr. Sajid Amin Saab. I can share also so many, the 154 action across the 58 institutions whenever we will meet, so that may be made part of this discussion as well. One thing that Dr. Abdullah Dayos Saab mentioned, that there is no, that was part of his recommendation, that National Economic Council is the only institution at the federal level. Let me clarify that National Economic Council approves, has the mandate, is the highest, the biggest constitutional body in the Pakistan that approves the plans, the development plans for the Pakistan, for the federal government as well as the provinces. Recently, its meeting was held and it has approved the annual plan for the Pakistan, which includes the provinces as well. So this is the highest body. It also includes, and the provincial representatives are rightly represented with their annual plans. Thank you very much, Dr. Sajid Saab, and thank you very much to your institution for inviting me to share my thoughts with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Talpur Saab. Now we will come to you for those action marks, 158 action that you are highlighting. And we will also like to engage, if you can connect us to the committees or those who are working on these. So we would really like to take these discussions and listen them as well on this one. So we would really appreciate if you can stay with us, because we'll continue discussion.
Sure.
But we totally understand whenever you wanted to leave, so you can just say, and we will be still honored that you spared roughly 2 hours for us. So Nadeem, if you can come in on this one.
Thank you very much. My name is Nadeem and I am a teacher by profession. I will come straight to your questions. First of all, very comprehensive presentation with all important key pillars. And it is really hard to pick the 2 key pillars from those or add to this. But since my own inclination is towards public finance and inclusive growth, so I am in a favor of picking if I am to choose the 2, I will pick the inclusive economic growth and public finance. Why inclusive economic growth? Because I talk to the people in streets, just ordinary peoples, and to get to know about their sentiments. And the people say that usually the gains are for others, but those who are made to sacrifice are someone others. So if we focus on inclusive economic growth so that the gains of the growth could be shared with all the people or the marginalized communities as well, then it will bring in the trust, which is very, very important for economic growth. trust is not just a social, social commodity. It is an economic asset as well, because higher trust within economic actors, it lowers the transaction cost and it improves the contract enforcement as well. Then on the public finance side, a lot of time the taxes are discussed. Yes, they are very important, but expenditures are also very important, the size of the government. Here, I will not say that we should reduce the size of the government, but I would rather say that we should expand and make it more efficient in some areas like public health, public education, and civic infrastructure, access to justice, contract enforcement, and others, and reduce the size of the government in other sectors where it creates sludges and it creates hurdle in the way of investment and others. So we need to think about it in a very details, with very much details, and I would like you to add some points on that. And on some of other things, I would suggest that we should also think about some cross-cutting themes such as trust, cooperation, and incentive alignments. On the trust, I have spoken already. Cooperation is also very much needed because the current environment is, unfortunately, it seems that we are on confrontations between various economic actors. Without cooperation between economic actors, we cannot develop. And then incentive alignment, because across the institutions, incentive alignment is very important, because incentives not only shape actions, but also shape beliefs. So it should not be just a few changes in the formal rules, but it should be a broad-based collective agenda, and incentives should be aligned with the achievement of that agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. No hands from this side. But before I can make just one point that I would like to reiterate, that when we are thinking on sort of overhauling or rethinking this economic governance framework, we are really shifting this discussion, or we are trying to shifting, which we call the turning the table on its head. Pakistan's very recent discussion, or generally discussion on economy, is, as you also, sir, mentioned, that our problems are the twin deficits. What we are saying is that actually these twin deficits are an outcome. They are product of a bad economic governance model and bad growth. So general discussion believes that the current account deficit and the fiscal deficits, they are causing a low growth. What we are trying to discuss is that they are actually the outcome of your present growth model. If your policy only supports consumption-led model, consumption-led growth, import-based growth, current account deficit is a natural outcome. If taxation only focuses on exploiting the existing taxpayers, not rationalizing expenditures, fiscal deficit is an outcome. So to me, it is not the twin deficit which is holding us back. It is the bad economic governance which is producing a bad growth, which is creating those deficits. You cannot correct those deficits until you correct that governance, which is creating those. That is our core pillar point that we are trying to make. Sir, over to you.
For the growth, but I would like to discuss just one of them, particularly the policy coordinations. We are talking about that it is a consumption-led growth, particularly in Pakistan. We are not talking about the supply side. So there is some type of contradictions here, like we are talking only about the consumption side, not about the production sides. So whenever there is a gap between production and consumptions, then ultimately these types of twin deficits will happen. And I think another thing that we are talking about, that is female labor force participations. That is necessary to raise the growth rate. But I'm thinking that our policies which we are making, those are little bit contradictory to this. Particularly, let's suppose there is one program which is a BISP. In BISP, we are giving money just for the consumptions. Why not we are going to convert them into the production sides, give them money and ask them to do some type of business that may be a small scale. You can raise the money. Instead of giving 3,000 or 4,000, you may give them 10,000 and ask them, please produce something. And then you may give them some kind of subsidy in terms of tax reductions or tax waivers. And I think in this way, your females labor force participation will increase, as well as your production will increase, and these deficits will then can be reduced, and which will ultimately lead towards growth as well.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? So if I can just make two quick, as we are discussing and we have colleagues, those who will be reporting this. So my point is two clarifications. The one is that BISP is a necessary program. In any society, there are 2-3 kind of peoples. Those who are ready to participate in labor market, those who needs capacities and trainings to participate in labor market, because ultimate purpose is to include everybody in the labor market, which we're calling production. But still there are people, those who for some reasons, structural, very deep-rooted, cannot participate in labor markets. State has a responsibility to protect them, and this is where BISP comes. But this does not mean that there are no other programs. There are programs on skill development of women, small loans, asking women. So we will see that BISP is there. And it is a consumption, minimum consumption, which is basically necessary food items, something like this, that needs to be provided. It's not an alternate. So we will continue, we shall continue BISP without putting everything that, as we are now sponsoring BISP, so we should not go there. My second and last point is, when we call female employment, it's not a poverty-driven working that we are promoting. We have so much of it in Pakistan. Agriculture sector, every woman working in agriculture sector is a poverty-driven working. What we are asking is access to female labor participation in decent jobs. And that requires a whole lot of infrastructure support, right from mobility, transport, trainings, access to information. I, as a male, have more information on the labor market than a woman who is not allowed to have a mobile. I have more chances to visit market in terms and see the labor market compared to a woman who is not allowed free mobility. I am good to take a bike, taxi, car, bus to visit to my office, but a woman is not. So when we call a female labor force participation, that is in decent jobs. Current economic governance model is supporting this poverty-driven working model. This is what we wanted to shift this discussion for the decent and productive jobs through providing a supporting conducive environment, which includes from policies to infrastructure, mobility, and other sports. That is. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much.
much. I actually would like to share some points from my experience. I'm a technical advisor in GIZ. And in the past, I have worked in 2019. It's a support to local governance program where I was responsible for the component financing sustainable development. So in the financing sustainable development, the motive was to mobilize the finances of the private sector of the country so that we can improve the economic situation and to mobilize it for the cause of sustainable development rather than bringing the donors money or international funds. So we came across working with the chambers of commerce, especially like in Peshawar, I had a very close interaction with the women chambers. So I mean, the point which I came to mention here was that the women in the SMEs and the small and medium enterprises and the micro businesses, they are willing to enhance their exports or to go on that side, but then they don't understand how to go on that path. They don't understand, I mean, the regulatory reforms. And then when we ask them, they say, help us to fill out the forms. We are not that much educated. We don't understand. So these are the things which actually hinder their path to go for export, although they have products of good quality. If we, I mean, I've also visited their exhibition. So I guess that maybe they need some awareness and they need some capacity building to enhance their product quality as well as to, I mean, go for exports, and also maybe regulatory reforms. But for that, we need to assess that how much reforms will be required and how we can facilitate women, or not only women, also male, I mean SMEs and micro businesses, that how they can enhance or start their exports. So this was one point.
Please go ahead, go ahead.
So shall I mention that?
Today's session is just to listen to you.
Right. Thank you.
All of you.
I'm just mentioning my, I mean, from my past experience. So then we also conducted a study with the Pakistan Center of Philanthropy. And because we were having a deep discussion that how we can enhance the private sector financing and the local financing and the domestic resource mobilization of Pakistan, because other countries are doing that. So why not we, to enhance the economic situation of the country? So several suggestions came across after discussing with multiple experts, like blended tools, like blended finance, green bonds. So we had also conducted a study about the philanthropic fund, that maybe if we establish some fund where maybe the tax money, or where I mean some SMEs or medium enterprises, where whomsoever, if they can fund it, and then that fund can be channelized properly towards sustainable development. Maybe it can be created at federal level, or maybe it can be created on a provincial level. So these are the things we can think upon.
Thank you. I think very important points. And just to relate with the work kind of we are doing, which relates to like much most to it, we are working on integrated public finance with UNICEF. And the core is that this alternate financing needs to integrate into public finances. There are some legal windows which are available in all provinces, which we call viability gap funds. All provinces have viability gap funds that if there is no public finance available or not in the required quantity, how you can bridge it through alternate financing, including philanthropy. So that's one area that we are working. Another area that we are starting to work on is on the women empowerment. This is more on access of women to market through a virtual platform. So we can discuss more on this one, that what we are doing. I really wanted to just focus on to this one, but we are working on this access to market, women access to market, connecting them with the buyer through virtual platforms, and how we can sustain it. So that's another model. Yes, please. So if you allow me, I can go now, all of you in reverse order, one reform that you would like to see. So you can think yourself, you can challenge your mind, try to speak what is not spoken already.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Aisha Javed. I am from Research and Development Solution. I'll just suggest a reform on the point which is already mentioned by Dr. Muhammad Ali Talpur regarding fiscal deficit. So every year we see there's a huge fiscal deficit, which is majorly because of revenue expenditure gap. So for me, the best reform the government should take is to adopt austerity measures so that we can at least bridge this.
Thank you. I think we've been practicing austerity for 7 decades. Sir, one just bullet point reforms. What needs to be done?
I would have 2 or maybe 3.
Maybe you can 2, 3, but bullets.
Yeah, sure. The first thing that I would suggest to the government or through this plus policy platform, the government should include the policy consultation for the business policy framework. That the agri should be incentivized for better economic growth. There should be, agri incentivized policies for the agriculture sectors. Another is, as we were talking about the solar, that should be tax free, because already we are facing energy crisis. So if we go on a solar tax free, it would help to cop your energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Would you like to come? Okay, great. You are taking notes. So please, if we can go for more fundamental reforms.
I think if the conclusion that I can draw, focus here is on growth sustainability and growth inclusiveness. From my side, the reform that need is restructuring of economic growth. And instead of just pace of economic growth, it should be knowledge-led and export-led.
Yes.
And to knowledge-led and export-led, reform should be, the appealing reforms are human capability is very, very important. Population management, human capability, and energy crisis. We have to work to overcome energy crisis. We have to develop, we have to build human capability, and at the same time population.
What can be done? If I can give for other examples, Mini. We understand that we need to manage energy crisis. What exactly one thing that you think can be done to manage this crisis? That is the question that I am coming.
Okay. I think same structure economies like Pakistan, they are switching from now conventional energy sources to renewable.
Renewables.
Yeah, renewable. And unfortunately, if India, Bangladesh, and they have same economic fundamentals, they are switching from conventional to renewable. Why not in Pakistan it is possible? Because we have all type of sources, this water, wind, and solar.
Next, please. आप बड़ी देर से सर खामोश बैठे हैं, हमने आपको बुलवा के छोड़ना है.
अदनान चौहान, एडवोकेट फ्रॉम बेदारी. वैसे तो मेरा जो पॉइंट था वो एड्रेस ऑलरेडी मिस कोमल ने कर दिया है, लेकिन एक जस्ट एक बुलेट पॉइंट में बात करना चाहूंगा कि जो टैक्स हमारे इस वक्त जो नई पॉलिसीज बनाई गई हैं ना, उसमें वो बहुत ही अनरियलिस्टिक सी हैं ना. वो सिस्टमेटिक वे में, जैसे वो फिक्स टैक्स पॉलिसी उन्होंने अनाउंस की है, इसी तरह से दो तीन और इसी तरह से चीज़ें उनमें इंक्लूड की हैं. तो जो भी टैक्स पॉलिसीज हम बनाते हैं वो ग्राउंड रियलिटीज को देखते हुए रियलिस्टिक होनी चाहिए. तो ये एक पॉइंट था, बाकी पॉइंट ऑलरेडी डिस्कस हो चुके.
नेक्स्ट. क्या करें?
टैक्स लगाएं सर जी.
इनकम टैक्स
हट जाते हैं.
Next, please.
I have two suggestions. Though मेरा इस पे भी था fiscal consolidation में भी कि that is at the cost of what? It was. This is the first time the fiscal consolidation जो आई है वो development budget को cut करके आई.
Yes.
और this is the first time IMF ने भी एतराज नहीं किया. Earlier IMF ने हमेशा डेवलपमेंट को साइड पर रख के फिजिकल कंसोलिडेशन का कहा था. और दूसरा तीसरी बात ये कि फिजिकल कंसोलिडेशन अब 4 साल से हो गई है. मेरा ख्याल है कि ये बहुत ही रिस्क अवर्स अप्रोच है गवर्नमेंट की कि वो एक्सपैंड नहीं कर रहा. और वंस इट स्टार्ट्स टू एक्सपैंड, वो फिजिकल कंसोलिडेशन वो सारा शटर हो जाएगा, बिकॉज दैट इज नॉट बेस्ड ऑन. यस, देयर इज नो टैक्स पॉलिसी. आई बिलीव कोई टैक्स पॉलिसी नहीं है. फाइनेंस बिल के अंदर चेंजेस करके हम जो कहते हैं कि ये टैक्स पॉलिसी, देयर इज नो टैक्स पॉलिसी इन पाकिस्तान. So we need to develop a comprehensive tax policy. It should be based on वो जो टेक्स्ट बुक में canons of good tax policy है उसको फॉलो करने की बहुत ज़रूरत है. वन थिंग. सेकेंड थिंग इज पाकिस्तान की जो इंडस्ट्री है ख़ास तौर पे, दैट इज़ नो मोर एक्सपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड इंडस्ट्री. हम सब्सिडीज़ की बेस के ऊपर उसको जो है वो थोड़ा सा सपोर्ट करते हैं तो वो एक्सपोर्ट कर लेती है. अदरवाइज इट इज़ नॉट कम्पेटिटिव इन ग्लोबल मार्केट. तो एक एनेबलिंग एनवायरनमेंट उसके लिए प्रोवाइड करनी पड़ेगी, उसकी कैपेसिटी डेवलप करनी पड़ेगी टू मेक इट एक्सपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड। ये दो चीज़ें मेरे ख्याल है बहुत ज़रूरी है।
आई थिंक बड़े अहम पॉइंट्स हैं दोनों ही, कि टैक्स पॉलिसी हमारी है ही नहीं एक्चुअली ना। यस।
I am Abdul Majid. I am working as research officer in Pakistan Institute for Parliamentary Services. I think points almost सारे जो है वो डिस्कस हो चुके हैं, लेकिन मैं सिर्फ 2 पॉइंट्स पे जो है वो मेरा फोकस है। एक तो इंस्टीट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म फॉर इंटीग्रेटेड इकोनॉमिक गवर्नेंस है, कि हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशंस को जो है वो फ्रेगमेंटेडली जो है एक्ट करने के बजाय आपस में मिलके और एक ही पॉलिसी को जो है फॉलो करते हुए चलना चाहिए। और इसमें दूसरी जो चीज़ है मेरे नज़दीक मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट, कि हमारी पॉलिसीज जो है मोस्टली इलेक्टोरल साइकिल्स पे बेस होती हैं। एक गवर्नमेंट आई, उसने अपने लिहाज से एक पॉलिसी बनाई, नेक्स्ट गवर्नमेंट आए और वो पॉलिसी या तो फिनिश हो जाती है या फिर जो है उसमें बिल्कुल ही जो है वो चेंज हो जाती है। तो हमें ये चाहिए कि हम इसको एज ए नेशनल पॉलिसी के तौर पे जो है ट्रीट करें इंस्टेड ऑफ द इलेक्टोरल पॉलिसीज। Secondly, we need to shift towards the productivity and export-led economic transformation. जब हम एक्सपोर्ट-लेड इकोनॉमिक ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की बात करते हैं तो हमारे जहन में सबसे पहली जो चीज़ आती है वो वही ट्रेडिशनल टेक्सटाइल एक्सपोर्ट्स आ जाती हैं, ये टेंजिबल चीज़ें आ जाती हैं। लेकिन व्हाट अबाउट द इंटेंजिबल थिंग्स लाइक सर्विसेज प्रोवाइडिंग? आज की जो दौर है वो आईटी और आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस पे बेस कर रहा है। हम बहुत सारी ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जिसमें जो है वो हमारे नौजवान जो है बहुत ज़्यादा टैलेंटेड हैं और वो इस चीज मार्केट में कम्पीट कर सकते हैं, और इस चीज़ से हम जो है वो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज जो है वो उसको भी जो है वो जनरेट कर सकते हैं और अपनी इकोनॉमी को थोड़ा सा जो है स्ट्रेंथ।
थैंक यू। आई थिंक अगर मैं सिंप्लीफाई कर दूं, हमारी टीम जो नोट्स ले रही है, एक तो मुझे लगता है कि जो हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं उनकी कैपेसिटी डेवलपमेंट की ज़रूरत है टू कोऑर्डिनेट, बिकॉज दे आर नॉट ट्रेंड फॉर दिस कोऑर्डिनेटेड पॉलिसी, और एक्सप्लोरिंग न्यू एवेन्यूज ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट्स। एंड वी डू एग्री ऑन दिस वन, कि जो आपका एग्जिस्टिंग एक्सपोर्ट बास्केट है और जो सेक्टर है वो पीक कर चुके हैं अंडर करंट सिस्टम, इसके अलावा वो सब्सिडीज़ के अलावा चल नहीं सकते, तो वी नीड टू एक्सप्लोर। और मेरे ख्याल उसमें अच्छी बात यह है कि जो गवर्नमेंट है वो बात कर रही है आईटी सेक्टर की, एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर की, बाकी सेक्टर्स की, तो दैट शुड बी द कोर पिलर टू एक्सप्लोरिंग न्यू एवेन्यूज ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट्स इंस्टेड ऑफ जस्ट फोकसिंग ऑन जो ऑलरेडी ट्रेडिशनल जो एक्सपोर्ट्स हैं। We can come from that side. No issues. If you don't want to say anything, please, no issues. No comment, sir. Agree कर रहे हैं आप हमसे? देख लें हमने बहुत कुछ गलत कहा होगा, पकड़े जाएंगे आप। Next, please. 1 or 2 bullet points.
I was just thinking that maybe we need to bring the informal economy into the consideration of the formal economy. Maybe we can incentivize that because it's a huge portion informal economy of the country. So then it can enhance the exports and it can increase the economic growth of Pakistan.
I think what we are discussing on this informality, but we are proposing is not a forced formality. Because in Pakistan, whenever the documentation was done, it was done to impose taxes on you, bringing you on tax net. So nobody wants to be. So what Bangladesh did is documentation for facilitation. They don't force you in formality or formality. They facilitate documentation in whatever the model you are operating. The one discussion point that we will be bringing, that in Pakistan, we generally confuse documentation with the formalization. Informality is a way of doing work. For example, PBS definition on informality is that if you have less than 10 employees, you are informal. So you cannot force it to have more employees to be formal. It will remain informal. What you can do is to document, and documenting for facility, but this is important point that we are. Yes, please.
The institutional capacity building as well, just like as you mentioned that one policy sometimes contradicts with the other. So this is, I mean, maybe we need to develop more sense in that within institutions, that all the policies should be coherent with each other.
I think it's very important, and this is the core of our all this discussion, that how to do it. So next, please. Nadeem Saab, would you like to come in?
Sir, एक छोटी सी बात जो मेरे ज़हन में आ रही है सबकी बात सुन के, कि if we can somehow government के ऊपर ये compulsory हो कि they put all the policy documents before finalizing them, and minutes of those important meetings in public before finalizing those policies, and then making some public dashboards where the tracking of their promises we can see. That will make huge difference, I guess.
And in terms of accountability, Ji, please.
For energy crisis, the thing that I can think of to, implement right now is cut down the expenses of bureaucracy and politicians, free petrol and protocols and everything.
Yes.
I have 3 recommendations on the fiscal side. First is to phase out the untargeted subsidies so that we can address the real inefficiencies. Second is uniform treatment of taxes, and we can do that starting with completely ending the tax expenditures. And third is reduce the tax rates.
Do you have anything to add, Ji, please?
We need to improvise and prioritize water issues, water management, water governance, and water monitoring is a need of our. India violation of Indus Water Treaty Accord is unacceptable, but we need to invest in water sector, digitalize water sector to cope up with the pertaining issues. We need to invest on shady trees as Pakistan is facing environmental challenges. We need to invest more on technology to compete with the international market, and we need to spend on innovations. As everybody is witnessing violence cases, especially with the women, we need to improvise laws and punishments so that every gender here feels safe and secure in the country.
Thank you, Ji. आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया. From our side, this is end, but let me invite हम सबकी mentors, हम बहुत सीखते हैं. Dr. Alia Hashmi अगर हमारे साथ हैं, उनके last comments and the conclusion. Dr. Sabha, thank you so much for staying with us throughout, and this really speaks your commitment for the cause. हम अक्सर दुआ करते हैं कि हम भी आपकी तरह पैशनेट और एक्टिव रह सकें, जितना हम आपसे सीखते हैं और उसमें. So if your last comments, that we will take as a conclusion, Ji.
Thank you, Dr. Sajid. You're very kind, and with all my years of experience in teaching and research and policy development, I will again emphasize that I think we need to use data better than we are doing at the moment. Pakistan Bureau of Statistics is producing a lot of very informative statistics, but I don't think that they are being translated into, maybe we can call them reform indicators. So we need to sort of develop a set of indicators to map the speed and the success of our reform agenda. And I mean, there was a wide canvas of reforms suggested across all different thematic areas today. But as a passionate labor economist, living in a country with a huge youth population, and I also heard some frustration from the side of the youth today. And I wish that, the reform agenda would incorporate that frustration in the sense of really working towards job creation and promoting the innovation and the technology adoption, facilitating the technology adoption that is required across all industry divisions, beginning from agriculture to manufacturing to services, and of course, translating into trade expansion also that harnesses the potential of the youth of our country, because our educational institutions are producing a large number of educated youth. The higher education enrollment gap has also almost, closed up, but we are still not providing productive employment opportunities for the youth. So I would like to finish on that note that whatever reform agenda takes shape from these discussions, I would like to see the issue of job creation and, as you said very rightly, not just any type of jobs, but decent jobs for the male and female youth of Pakistan. So thank you very much.
डॉक्टर साहब थैंक यू सो मच। आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया जी, हमारी और हमारी टीम की तरफ से। FES का शुक्रिया इन एब्सेंशिया कि उन्होंने हमें इसमें सपोर्ट करते हैं। विल कंटिन्यू दिस डायलॉग। और आप सबका शुक्रिया आपने ज्वाइन किया। डॉक्टर तालपुर साहब हमारे साथ थे, उनका और हमारी टीम का, खासकर समीर ने, FES के कोलीग्स जो बैठे हैं, दे पुट अप ऐसा एफर्ट। सो बिग थैंक्स टू, आई थिंक चाय समीर आप पिला रहे हैं हमें कि नहीं पिला रहे हैं चाय? चलें जी, हमें चाय पिलाई जा रही है जी। सो प्लीज टेक टी, वी विल कंटिन्यू दीज डिस्कशंस विद यू जी। थैंक यू जी।